Joker 2 just had one of the biggest second-week drops in the history of movies. Let's talk about why that is, and why it's a movie that's far more interesting than it's being given credit for. When you make a villain the story's protagonist, we are so conditioned that the POV character is our hero that some segments of the audience can't help but root for them, no matter how evil they are. When a creator chooses to center a villain or anti-hero, it's harder for them to maintain control of what the audience should feel about them. Complication and nuance tend to get hammered out of a character as the audience begins to force them into the traditional hero mode that they're accustomed to. Let's consider for a moment the Sopranos' third season episode, Employee of the Month. In that episode, Dr. Melfi is assaulted, and the scene is shot in the most brutal, unsparing way imaginable. You're meant to truly feel Melfi's pain. As the system around her fails, and no one is able to provide her any solace or justice, we, as the audience, are waiting for her to tell Tony Soprano, the mobster, what happened to her, so that he can exact revenge on Melfi's behalf. When the episode ends with Tony asking Melfi, "What's wrong?" we're greeted with a long pause and then...
What's the matter? Hey, come on. What'd I do?
Go sit over there. We'll do this.
What? I mean, you want to say something?
No.
Nothing. Melfi has had a moral victory that should be celebrated by the audience, but it wasn't, and it still isn't. I was there when the episodes were airing live, following along with the discourse as best you could back when the internet was run on hamster wheels and twine. And let me tell you something, the audience felt cheated. For months and years after that episode aired, we waited for the show to circle back around and for Tony to do what Tony does. But it never did. We weren't able to understand that Melfi's refusal to tell Tony about her assault was heroic action. Why was that? Or even if we did understand it, why were we disappointed by it? Because we identified with Tony. He was our way into the world, and regardless of how deft David Chase was at creating that world, at a certain point, it became ours. Well, ours and Tony's. And since Tony would have wanted revenge, we wanted it too. The same thing happened at the end of 2019's Joker. Whatever intentions Phillips had at the end of that movie, Arthur Fleck's final transformation into Joker was not a moment of tragedy. When the cruelty of Arthur's world finally turned him into a monster, we cheered. It was a moment of triumph. Arthur was our point of view character, and as he began to change into the Joker, we wanted it for him. When he murders the people who hurt him, we're rooting for it because, well, they hurt us. And just like he does for Arthur, the Joker persona gets revenge for us, the audience, as well. Obviously, this situation annoyed Todd Phillips to the point that Joker 2 is an entire meditation on what it meant to misunderstand the first movie, and on a deeper level, an attempt at a conversation about who controls a character. Is it the creator or is it the audience? Arthur Fleck starts Joker 2 in a catatonic state, numb on medication and imprisonment. As his trial approaches, however, everyone around him, with the exception of his lawyer, is pushing him to be Joker again. From the hordes of fans that surround the courthouse, to Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn, to even the guards who keep asking Arthur for a joke, the movie reflects the feelings of the audience. When is the Joker showing up?
When are they gonna get to the fireworks factory?
Movie withholds Joker from us as long as it can, forcing us into Arthur's bleak, dark world, boring us with the music only he can hear. And when the Joker finally does arrive, it's not the moment of catharsis that it was in the first movie. Joker is not the charismatic, amoral revenge jester he was before. Instead, he must confront the consequences of his actions, learning that a laugh line from the first movie when he lets Tommy Puddles go
scary?
Yeah.
You were the only one that was ever nice to me. Yeah.
Has real ramifications on the actual man, leaving him a broken and scarred victim, not unlike Arthur himself. Forced to reckon with this, Arthur has a choice, not unlike Melfi's: lean into what the audience wants and become the monster, or reject him and save his own humanity. And the audience watching has a question that they have to ask themselves as well. Are you so desperate for Joker that you're willing to kill Arthur to get him? Well, the movie's box office has a pretty stark answer to that question.
Hey, what about Major Kong?
In a more sane world, this movie would not have cost $200 million, and the risk it took would not be with so much of Warner Brothers' money. This movie probably would have worked better as a 6-part miniseries on HBO, so that the people who watched it didn't feel cheated out of their $20 ticket. And instead, we would have had a week between each installment to discuss what the movie was trying to accomplish. The hatred Joker 2 has received has been from both sides. The critics hate it because Todd Phillips doesn't have the skill to navigate the waters he so boldly decided to enter, so his attempts at art feel too much like pretension. There are only so many David Chases in this world able to put a horse in a living room during a dream sequence and still somehow manage to make it work.
I think I want to come home.
There are some non-negotiable conditions.
Like what?
You can't have your horse in here.
Why not?
Well, Todd Phillips isn't one of those. The audience hates Joker 2 because it's a direct attack on them. It's asking questions about what they want from a movie that are uncomfortable to bring up.
Am I so out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong.
So while Joker 2 mostly fails as a piece of entertainment, it wildly succeeds as a metatextual referendum on what people want and expect from the movies that they watch. Whatever you feel about the movie itself, you have to admit that's a pretty daring, potentially career-destroying move. In 20 years, no one's going to be talking about Shazam 2 or The Flash, but I have a feeling that people will still talk about Joker 2. It'll still have a place in the conversation. And possibly it'll be rediscovered by film students who are awed at its audacity without being encumbered by the expectation that we have. Like Melfi and Arthur's triumphs, it might not be the one we wanted, but it's a triumph all the same.